People, what secret do you want to confess that no one else knows? I had a fling with my mother-in-law for 8 days. I've never been able to talk about this with anyone I know, and I just need to get it off my chest. I'm posting here because this doesn't feel like typical TIFU content, and I think it's worth explaining. Last year, during the second wave of COVID, my wife and I were living in a small 2-bedroom apartment in the Northeast, close to a big city. We'd been married for 2 years, and things were going well. Then, my wife told me her single mother had lost her job due to layoffs and was struggling financially. She asked if her mom could stay with us for a bit until she got back on her feet. Her mom is a sweet person, and she and my wife had a decent relationship, so I was hesitant but agreed. What would I do if it were my own mom, right? So her mom moved in. Honestly, it wasn't bad at first. She cooked, kept the house tidy, and would join us to watch movies, but also gave us space when needed. It seemed fine, at least I thought so. A few weeks passed, and things started to change. What was supposed to be a short stay turned into 3 months. Around this time, my wife and her mom started bickering a lot. We stopped being intimate because my wife said she didn't feel comfortable with her mom around. Around the same time, my wife began spending more time out with friends and working longer hours. Or so I thought. Turns out, she was having an affair. How did I find out? A friend saw them at a bar making out, then leaving together in an Uber. He sent me a picture of them kissing in real time. I just broke down. Her mom came out, concerned, asking if everything was okay. I told her Jenny was fine and just needed some space. When Jenny finally came home, all hell broke loose. I hadn't planned on confronting her, but she saw I'd been crying and pushed me to tell her what was wrong. I showed her the picture. She went pale, started yelling that it wasn't her, it clearly was, and we proceeded to have a huge argument with mother-in-law in the room. Jenny blamed me, her mom, and even COVID. The fight escalated, and mother-in-law took my side. Jenny packed a bag and told us both to go to hell. The next day, Jenny told me she was staying with a friend to get some space. I didn't ask any questions. She came by to grab some things, but it was mostly just me and mother-in-law at the house from that point on. One night, while we were watching a movie, I was drinking bourbon and mother-in-law was having wine. I opened up about how difficult everything had been, and she patted my leg. Then, she just left her hand there. After a while, we both leaned in, and it happened. Honestly, I never expected this, but it was incredible. Mother-in-law was older than my typical type, but she was confident and knew exactly what she wanted. The chemistry was off the charts. It was the distraction I needed during such a tough time, even though I knew it was wrong. For the next 8 days, whenever I wasn't working, we couldn't stay away from each other. At first, we slept in separate beds, but eventually, I stayed in the extra bedroom with her. Looking back, it was risky, but I was a mess, and honestly, I didn't care as much as I should have. Then, 2 weeks later, Jenny reached out. She wanted to talk. Despite everything, I agreed. She admitted everything and apologized, crying and begging. In the end, I agreed to see a marriage counselor. She wanted to come back home, and so she did. Mother-in-law moved out soon after and went to live with a friend in Florida after landing a new job offer that paid more than her previous one. Jenny and I tried to make it work, but I just couldn't get past what happened. I still love her, but I could never trust her again. It was too much. So, in early 2022, I filed for divorce. The hardest decision of my life, but she agreed not to contest it, given the evidence I had, and we're just waiting for it to be finalized. I moved in with a friend to help with rent, and last week, mother-in-law added me on Facebook. I'm not saying I'm going to the beach anytime soon, but once all this is over, I'm definitely considering it. Before we continue, do us a quick favor. Smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. I broke up a 20-year marriage and ruined someone's lifelong relationship with their parent. This isn't a throwaway account, because if anyone who knows the people involved sees it, they'll probably be able to figure out who I am. I'm just too afraid to come forward and face the consequences. For some background, I used to live in a big city known for a large park and a historic bridge. I've always been good at striking up conversations with strangers, so one day when I was out walking my dog in the park, I met an older woman, let's call her Clara, with her dog, and we immediately hit it off. She invited me to join her book club, and since I was looking to make more friends, I agreed. Every week, I'd go to Clara's or one of her friends' houses to discuss books and chat about our lives. Sometimes Clara's husband, Mike, would come downstairs to grab something and stick around to socialize. At first, I didn't talk to him much because he was a lot older than me, and I didn't feel like we had much in common. But over time, he started hanging around downstairs more often. One day, I decided to drive out of the city to do some shopping. While at the mall, I ran into Mike, and to my surprise, he was with a young woman who seemed to be around my age. I didn't think much of it at first, assuming it was his daughter, but when I saw them in Victoria's Secret, I quickly left before they saw me. But being the curious person I am, I decided to follow them around the mall. After a while, I saw them leave the store, and Mike was carrying a large shopping bag while holding hands with the young woman. I pulled out my phone and started recording, and within seconds they kissed. That was enough proof for me, so I left before they noticed. I sat on this information for a long time, unsure of what to do. I knew Mike and Clara had been married for years, and I didn't want to interfere in their relationship. I also considered that maybe they were in an open marriage, and if I told Clara, she might get mad at me for sticking my nose in their business. Eventually, I decided to get a secondary SIM card and anonymously send her the video. A few days later, Clara called me and asked to meet up. I was worried she somehow traced the video back to me and was upset. When I arrived at the meeting spot, I was surprised to see a few other members of the book club there. Clara was emotional and told us that she was getting a divorce and might be moving away. Here's where it gets worse. The woman Mike was with was Clara's daughter from a previous relationship. Clara explained that when she confronted Mike and her daughter, they admitted to everything. They had been in love for years and hadn't known how to approach her about it. Apparently, they'd been sleeping together since her daughter turned 18, and they were planning to get married. I really wanted to tell Clara that I was the one who sent the video, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Since then, I've moved away, but Clara treats me like a daughter. My family doesn't celebrate Christmas, so I spent it with her and her family last year. I even have the lock code to her house and can visit whenever I want. She's been so kind to me, and I feel terrible because if she ever finds out I was the one who sent that video, I know she'll hate me. It's been eating away at me, and I don't know what to do. TLDR, I found out my older friend's husband was having an affair with her daughter and anonymously sent her a video of it. Now, I'm too afraid to tell her I was the one who sent it because I'm worried it'll ruin our relationship. Update. After reading the responses, I've decided not to tell her it was me. If she ever asks, I won't lie, but I don't think I'll bring it up. I know I shouldn't feel responsible, but seeing how she's changed from a happy woman to a wreck makes me feel horrible. Thank you for all the advice and kind responses. I really needed to get this off my chest. Story 3. I've cheated on my wife for 6 years. In 2009, I married my wife. We were both Catholic, and I had just started my first full-time job at 23. We'd been together for 2 years, and I loved her. However, we never had intimate relations before marriage. She was a virgin, and her beliefs about intimate relations were shaped by her hyper-conservative Catholic upbringing. I wasn't a virgin, but I was willing to respect her values and remain abstinent for her. It wasn't until after we got married that I realized how deeply her views had impacted her. On our wedding night, she tried to avoid doing it. I convinced her to go through with it, but she cried afterward. Over the following months, she avoided intimacy altogether. Even though we were affectionate in other ways, kissing, cuddling, traveling together, physical relation became a point of tension. She wasn't comfortable with anything, and there was no intimacy in other forms, oral or otherwise. I became frustrated and started questioning myself. I wondered if I was bad at doing it or if she simply didn't enjoy it with me. This left me feeling self-conscious and rejected, especially since my previous relationships had been much more open intimacy-wise. Eventually, we found out we were expecting, but even then, she continued to resist intimacy. At about 6 months pregnant, she suggested a month of abstinence, and she even tried to stop me from doing solo, involving a priest to discuss it. After our daughter was born, her reluctance only grew. She began to see physical relations as unnecessary, and when I pushed for it, she did it reluctantly. It was a painful realization for me. One night, while out drinking, I met another woman who caught my attention. We hit it off, and she invited me back to her place. But I didn't act on it right away. I didn't want to be the type of person who cheated on my family. But after our daughter was born, and with my wife's continued disinterest, I gave in. I met that woman again several months later, and we ended up doing it. I hadn't felt so good about myself in a long time. It was a release, and it made me feel seen and appreciated in ways I hadn't in my marriage. As time passed, other women came and went, and I couldn't stop. Sometimes, I'd try to focus on my marriage, but it always felt like my wife was relieved that I wasn't pushing for intimacy anymore. I'm not sure if she knows the real reason, but I think deep down, she might have an idea. I've considered divorce, but with our daughter, and with my wife's firm Catholic beliefs, I feel stuck. So that's where things stand. I don't feel proud of my actions, but I don't know how to fix this. I'm stuck between the love I still have for my wife, my dissatisfaction, and the reality of our situation. Story 4. I cheated on my fiance and never told her about it. I know I was an a-hole, and I fully own it. When I was 22, my friend and I went to Mexico for a 4-day vacation. My girlfriend was supposed to join us, but she got sick and canceled. Since we already had the tickets and reservation, we decided to go anyway. While there, I got really drunk at a party. A girl started flirting with both me and my friend. Eventually, she got up close and asked us to go to a back room. I was put off by how forward she was in her looks, but I was too drunk to care. My friend, who also had a girlfriend at home, was down. We went to the back area, and she took him into a bedroom while I waited outside, feeling like I was about to vomit. After they were done, she said something to me in rapid Spanish that I couldn't understand, then started unbuckling my belt. I basically stood there like a zombie, trying not to puke, as she gave me oral. Afterward, I left without my shirt, which I never got back, and walked back to the hotel in just my pants. At the time, I'd been in a relationship with my girlfriend for about 4 months, though we'd known each other for 2 years. I was an alcoholic, a cokehead, and a habitual cheater. When I got back, I felt guilty, especially since my girlfriend was recovering from mono, and I ended up having it too. She had to take care of me during that time. I was planning to tell her and break things off, but after both of us being sick, I couldn't bring myself to tell her, so I just let it go. 5 months later, I went to rehab and got sober, tackling my alcohol and cocaine issues. Since then, I rarely drink and haven't gotten drunk. I proposed to my girlfriend 3 weeks ago, and we're getting married in 20 days. I don't have the same mindset I used to. Back then, I would cheat, feel guilty, and then break up with my girlfriend, drinking myself into a self-loathing spiral. I never really had a relationship last longer than 4 months until my fiance. I don't even know why I cheated. It was never worth it. In Mexico, and with past relationships, I would think in the moment that I could get away with it, but then feel awful the next day. I never told my girlfriend about what happened in Mexico, and I don't plan to. I'm not even friends with the guy I went with anymore. Honestly, I thank God for mono, because that time spent being sick together helped me forget about the cheating. It made me stay with her, and she was the reason I got sober. If it weren't for her, I honestly might not be here today. So call me selfish, call me an a-hole, I don't care. No one knows what happened, but I just wanted to get this off my chest. Story 5. I stole alcohol from the same store every other day for 2 years without getting caught and drank daily at work. I've never shared this with anyone because it's embarrassing and completely out of line. This happened during the height of my alcoholism, when my family thought I was in recovery. I feel so guilty for lying to them and betraying their trust, and I'll take this secret to my grave. It's just so crazy that I actually did this and no one ever knew, but I want to tell someone, so I'm posting it here. Sorry if it's long. About 2 years ago, while I was supposed to be recovering, I started stealing alcohol during my work breaks. It happened almost every other day, sometimes 2 days in a row. I worked in an office in a nicer part of town, and there was a big chain drugstore about 5 minutes away. My boss never suspected anything. I'd just tell him I was taking my 10-minute break, usually between 10 and 11 a.m. I'd grab my purse, jump in my car, and be back on time most of the time. I'd go to the drugstore, which was busy at that hour, and head straight through the makeup aisle to the back, where the pharmacy was. From there, I could easily access the liquor aisle, and I'd walk back the same way so it looked like I was leaving from the pharmacy, never carrying a shopping bag. To be honest, I don't think anyone ever noticed me. Most of the time, I'd steal a cheap plastic bottle of vodka. I'd find an aisle without a camera or people, casually put the bottle in my purse, and walk out without anyone noticing. After doing this for weeks, I showed up one day and saw that all the bottles were locked with security caps. At first, I thought they were catching on, but I still found a bottle hidden behind the others or a more expensive brand that wasn't locked. Instead of stopping, I kept going back, still getting away with it every time. To make it worse, I was also drinking at work. I'd empty out half of a water bottle and fill it up with stolen alcohol. I'd sneak a bottle from the work fridge or just grab one from the store when I went out on break. For over a year, I drank all day at work, starting in the morning. No one ever said anything about it. I'd go to my car to refill my water bottle and hide it under my blouse, making sure no one noticed. I can't imagine what my boss or co-workers would think if they knew. It honestly mortifies me to think about it. One day, while drunk at work, I went to take my break and fell in the parking lot, injuring myself badly enough to take 3 months off on FMLA. No one knew it was because I was drinking on the job. When I returned, I just went back to my same routine. As for why I didn't just buy the alcohol, part of my recovery was keeping up the appearance of being completely transparent with my spending. I allowed my partner to check my card to ensure I wasn't lying to him about where my money was going. If I bought alcohol, it would have blown my whole act, so I resorted to stealing. Addiction can make you act almost sociopathic, and I've suffered the consequences of my actions and continue to do so. I know I was wrong. Story 6. I'm in love with sister-in-law. I'm in my early 30s, married for 7 years, with a wife who's just a year younger than me. Like any couple, we've had our ups and downs, but one thing we agreed on from the start was being brutally honest with each other. That level of openness has helped us grow together, and over the years, our relationship has evolved. We're no longer just partners, but best friends, raising our children side by side. When I first met my wife, her younger sister was only 15, and I saw her strictly as a kid. However, in the last couple of years, I've spent more time with her. She's now in her 20s and works at a retirement home. Like my wife, she doesn't have a driver's license, and my mother-in-law asked me to give her rides to where her dad works, which was quite far out of the way. I couldn't give her a ride all the way home, but during these trips, we started talking more and got to know each other better. It turned out we had a lot more in common than I had with my wife, something my wife even pointed out. I'm not exactly sure when it started, but our relationship quickly evolved into something more intense. Our rides to her dad's became trips to my place, and as she turned 21, the three of us began drinking together. Around Christmas last year, I realized I had developed feelings for her. During that time, I learned that she felt lonely and missed the intimacy she once had with her ex-boyfriend, who she'd broken up with 2 years ago, right around the time we started spending more time together. It was during one of our car rides at Christmas that she confided in me about missing intimacy. I understood because my wife had been battling depression for a long time and had often told me she no longer felt intimate or lovable, even though she still loved me and our children. She just didn't feel the same connection anymore. I reassured my sister-in-law that she was beautiful, and that's when it hit me. I had feelings for her. I'm not good at recognizing flirting, but my wife is. She pointed out things that made me realize there was something more going on between us. My sister-in-law had changed her usual attire for a beautiful dress one evening and wore a scent that made me swoon. We didn't go anywhere, we just went home. But when she left that night, my wife asked, "Who was she dressed up for?" When I didn't understand, she explained, pointing out the constant physical contact between us and the fact that my sister-in-law would wear perfume after work, even though she couldn't wear it at her job. These were things I had noticed but brushed off as my overactive imagination. By February, things had progressed further. One night, my sister-in-law stayed over at our place, and after my wife went to bed, I found myself asleep on the couch with her in my arms. She had fallen asleep resting her head on my chest. We didn't do anything more than sleep in each other's embrace, but it was one of the most fulfilling experiences of my life. When she woke up, she snuggled even closer, and we heard my wife and kids waking up, so we quickly composed ourselves. After that, things felt a little odd, but eventually we returned to normal. Eventually, I confessed to my wife that I had fallen in love with her sister. She wasn't surprised. In fact, she told me she had known and believed her sister felt the same way about me. My wife and I are polyamorous, and she had noticed our connection long before I did. She even encouraged me to pursue a relationship with her sister. We had a long conversation about it, and my wife said that she loves her sister and wants her to be happy. She couldn't think of anyone better suited to make her sister happy than me. Even now, I still haven't confessed my love to my sister-in-law or her parents. We continue to exchange long glances, extended physical contact, and flirt in ways that we can't fully acknowledge. My wife and I don't think their parents would understand, so we remain in a sort of limbo. The only regret I have is that I haven't yet been able to express my love for her openly. Story 7. I regret getting married, and it hasn't even been 6 months. I have mixed feelings about getting married. My husband and I tied the knot about 6 months ago. He's been my dream man, and we met online, dated for 2 years, and decided to marry. He now works full-time overseas, and I moved with him after our wedding. I thought our biggest challenge would be missing my family and adjusting to not working, but it's turned out to be more complicated than that. Finding a job here has been difficult, expected, I guess, and I probably won't find one, so I plan to take online college courses after the summer, something we agreed on together. But lately, I've started to feel like I'm doing everything at home. I never really thought of myself as feminist, but now it's like I'm expected to take care of everything because he's working all day. At first, I thought it would be fine, cooking, cleaning, doing the usual chores, but it's become a lot more than I imagined. He's complained a few times that I don't wake up early enough to have breakfast with him, and he's never really helped with anything around the house. The past couple of days, since I've been sick and let the house get messy, he finally pitched in with some chores, but it feels like it shouldn't have taken this long. I'm not sure if I'm being unreasonable, or if this is just how things are. I miss home, and the house isn't as cozy as I hoped it would be. Sometimes, it feels like he doesn't appreciate the sacrifices I've made. He's made me feel like I haven't done anything for him, like I'm just here for him to take care of, and he's the one who's made all the sacrifices. He apologized when I told him how hurtful that was, but I know he meant it. That moment made me seriously consider going back home, so he could see what life would be like without me. He loves me, and I love him, but I don't understand his behavior. He's my dream guy turned reality, but living with him has not felt like a dream. He never picks up after himself. If he finishes a can of soda, he leaves it wherever he is, on the bed, couch, or floor, without thinking to throw it away when he gets up. Does he think that because he works all day and provides for us, it's okay to leave everything to me? Is that normal? I don't know. If I wanted to take care of an infant, I would have had one. Being a housewife is hard work, and it's not as easy as I imagined. No matter how much you love someone, living with them can bring out sides of them you didn't expect. Story 8. I slept with my daughter's ex-boyfriend. He got me pregnant, and I had an abortion. They got back together and got married. This was back in, let me think, maybe 1997? I was 38, and my daughter was 18. She was dating Harry, who was 24. At that time, I was deep into alcoholism and dabbling in other drugs, mostly cocaine. I wasn't a good person, let alone a good mother. It's not like I was abusive to my daughter, but I was emotionally neglectful. I cared more about my alcohol and drugs than I did about her, especially during her teenage years. I'm 14 years sober now. I didn't approve of her dating Harry, but I never told her why. He flirted with me constantly, and the age difference creeped me out. Plus, he was an alcoholic and drug user, just like me. My daughter eventually broke up with him because of his alcoholism. Not long after, she moved out not far, but still, she wasn't living with me anymore. Harry kept calling me and asking if I wanted to grab drinks. I turned him down, but one day he told me he had a bunch of coke, and I couldn't resist. He came over, and we ended up banging. He was a good-looking guy. He actually reminded me of that ridiculous 80s Justin Bieber picture that went viral recently, which is what made me think of him. Over the next few months, maybe 3 or 4, he would sometimes come over, and we'd bang, get drunk, and do drugs together. It's that toxic bond that addicts form, doing everything together, no questions asked. Then I got pregnant. I knew it was his. I'd done it without protection a few times with him, and I was stupid about it. I never told him I was pregnant, and I went and had an abortion, keeping it a secret. After that, I stopped seeing him. It just felt too strange. I got sober for about 4 months, but eventually relapsed. Fast forward 2 years, and my daughter contacts me to tell me she got back with Harry, and he's fully sober now. I was mortified. He was planning to tell her about us, and I feared she would hate me forever. They came over one day, and when my daughter wasn't around, Harry told me there was no need to tell her. I agreed. Fast forward to today, 16 years of marriage between them, a kid together, and Harry battling and beating cancer. As for me, I've been sober for a while now. That's the gist of it. I don't see them often since they live in Texas and I'm on the East Coast, but whenever I do, there's this underlying tension between me and Harry. It's not hot tension, more like, why did we do that? What the hell were we thinking? It's that kind of tension. I think about this a lot, especially when I see my grandson. I can't help but think that could have been my son if things had gone differently. But honestly, I shudder to think of the disaster it would have been if I had kept that child. Story 9. I ruined my girlfriend's life. This happened a few years ago, and the girl I'm talking about is now my ex. When we first met, it felt like everything I had ever wanted was right in front of me. She was this short, fit, olive-skinned brunette who was bubbly, incredibly smart, and had a childlike innocence about her. She brought me so much joy, and honestly, I thought she was perfect. She was way out of my league, especially before I lost all my weight. I had known of her before because she had dated an acquaintance of mine. She had broken up with him a few months before we officially met. We bumped into each other at a track meet, had a conversation, and exchanged numbers. We became incredibly close, sharing things that nobody else knew. I had fallen in love with her, even though she was in a committed relationship. As fate would have it, a couple of months later, her boyfriend cheated on her. I remember her breaking down in front of me at a Panera. I did everything I could to help her leave him without being too obvious. I had planned what I would say and do in every scenario. A week later, after the New York Rangers lost the Stanley Cup final, I was emotionally charged and laid everything out on the line. I told her how I felt and what I wanted desperately. She said it was all too fresh, and that she wished things could have developed more naturally. I was gutted. I turned it around on her and played the victim. I was manipulative. I said things I shouldn't have. I thought that would be the end of it. We didn't talk for a few days, and then out of nowhere, she texted me saying she needed me and would rather have all of me than none at all. Looking back now, I feel incredibly guilty. But at the time, when I got that text and we hung out that night, it felt like nothing else mattered. I thought to myself, I won. And that thought now makes me shudder. The next year, everything seemed fine. Our beginning had faded quickly, but we were both genuinely in love. However, a year to the day, things slowly started to unravel. For my birthday that year, my friends and I planned a night at a strip club, even though I had assured her I wouldn't go. Around the same time, a friend and I took some pills after I had promised her I would never do that. About 3 weeks after those separate incidents, I was napping on her couch when she woke me up and told me to leave her house. She couldn't even look at me. She had read texts from me to a friend about what I had done. I was terrified, convinced I had just thrown away the most important thing in my life. We stayed up talking every night after that. I kept assuring her she could trust me, and eventually, she let me back in. At that point, I thought to myself, I can do anything and get away with it. She loves me too much. Not long after, I rationalized spending $30 on food using her card. She eventually got confused and worried, and her father ended up contacting the restaurant to get the transaction details. I was humiliated. Her family was now involved, and I could feel our relationship slipping. We fought every night. She didn't trust me anymore, and I was screwed. I honestly don't know how, but she kept loving me through all of that. We made it through. But what ultimately ended us was something I did months before. One day, while using her laptop, I noticed her sister's iCloud was backed up to it. My curiosity got the best of me, and I opened her sister's photos. There were dozens of explicit ones, and in my secrecy, I sent them to myself. Fast forward to December 28th, 2016. I woke up to a text from her saying we needed to talk. She came to my friend's house, and in her car, she broke up with me. I never found out how she found out, but seeing her so broken, someone I loved more than anything, I couldn't keep up the facade anymore. I broke down. We sat in her car in silence, crying for hours. Eventually, I got out of the car, and that was the end. None of it was worth it. It's been years now, and I hate myself for putting her through all of that. I know my feelings don't even come close to what she must have gone through. I'd give anything to have the girl who would have done anything for me back. I sent her a drunk text in October, a year and a half later, finally apologizing. It took me that long to man up and own my mistakes. Story 10. I snapped and faked a pregnancy in the worst possible way. I lived with my boyfriend for 4 years. We went back and forth about marriage, and after a lot of uncertainty, he finally proposed. But just a few weeks later, he backed out. Heartbroken, I broke up with him and moved back to my home state, 4,000 miles away. 3 months later, he called. He said he missed me, still loved me, and regretted canceling our engagement. He proposed again. At first, I was skeptical, but we talked for 7 hours, and he convinced me that he was ready to get married. I told him we'd sleep on it, and that I would call him the next day. If he meant it, he would answer. If not, he wouldn't. He answered, and we set a wedding date for 6 weeks later. I started making plans, only for him to go radio silent. After 2 weeks, he finally admitted that he wasn't ready again and called it off. For years later, I received a call out of the blue. He was in my city on business and asked if we could meet. I was over him by then, but decided to meet for a drink anyway. We caught up, and I asked him what had happened when he canceled our engagement. He told me he had always regretted it and had wanted to apologize but was too afraid. He said he'd never stopped loving me and that canceling the engagement was his biggest regret, along with never having a child with me. He'd always wanted a son. Something in me snapped at that moment. I told him I had been pregnant when I left him, that I had been pregnant the night he called to propose, but I didn't want him to marry me because of that, so I never told him. When he broke up with me, I decided to put the baby up for adoption. But I told him I suffered a miscarriage that same night. It was a boy. He left the table, visibly ill. The truth was, I had lied to him. There was no pregnancy. I just wanted to hurt him, the way he had hurt me. I never planned to lie like that. It just happened in the heat of the moment. I knew that telling him I lost his son would devastate him, and it was the most painful thing I could think to say. I never saw him again and never told him the truth. Update. Thanks for all the comments. I still can't explain why I did what I did. It's not like me at all. But when he said what he said, I just snapped. Seeing how sick he got in that moment, I instantly regretted what I had said. I knew I had devastated him, and I wished I could take it back, but I couldn't. Over time, I wanted to tell him the truth, but I couldn't bring myself to. I recently found out that he passed away, and now I can't. Story 11. I hid my daughter from her father, with help from his mom. For years ago, I dated a guy for 2 years. We were deeply in love, best friends, the whole shebang. But we broke up after a huge argument during my sophomore year of college, largely due to the strain of being in a long-distance relationship. His mom had always hated me, ever since her husband passed away a few years earlier. I think she saw me as a threat to her relationship with her son and didn't think I was good enough for him. She made it clear all the time, and one of the things my ex and I struggled with was him not standing up for me or even noticing how hurt I was by her treatment. A couple of years later, my ex came to our hometown, and we ended up meeting up with old friends. It was an awkward and tense situation, but after a few drinks, we started talking again, laughing, and eventually ended up doing it in a guest room at a friend's house. I was drunk, and we didn't use protection. The next morning, I barely remembered anything and just left without saying goodbye. A month later, I realized I was late for my period, but I hadn't noticed because I'd been so emotionally wrecked. I took a pregnancy test and was shocked to see it was positive, so much so that I fainted. I knew we wouldn't work as a couple, even though I still loved him deeply. I wanted him to be happy and successful, to find the right person for him, not be tied down to raising a kid with me. I couldn't bring myself to get an abortion, so after 3 months, when it truly hit me that I was going to keep the baby, I went to his mom. When I showed up at her door, she was wary, trying to hide her surprise. I told her I was pregnant with her son's child, and that I didn't want him to know because I didn't want to ruin his future. I told her I planned to move to Detroit, cut ties with everyone except my immediate family, and raise the child there. She agreed to support me financially, covering child support and rent, and I would continue school. Her final words to me were, "Thank you for doing what's best for my son. I never knew you loved him this much." Those words still haunt me. When I went home and told my parents about the plan, they were strongly against it, but I promised I'd stay until the baby was born, then leave. I think my dad reluctantly agreed because it would save them money on rent, and my mom allowed it because she didn't like how my ex treated me, though that wasn't entirely true. I moved to Detroit after my daughter was born, cut off contact with everyone back home, deleted social media, and changed my number. I started over working part-time, taking online classes, and raising my daughter alone. It was hard, but I made new friends and slowly adjusted. Then yesterday, I was at home when I heard a knock on my door. I opened it to find 6 of my old friends, including my ex. They had been looking for me for weeks after girl 1 found a letter I'd sent to my parents with pictures of my daughter. They were worried I was in some cult or sick, and when boy 2 mentioned a rumor about me having a kid, it all hit me. Seeing them, the shock, and the guilt, it was too much. I started tearing up. My daughter waddled into the room and went straight to my ex, hugged him tightly, and fell asleep on his chest. That moment was incredibly emotional for both of us, and I had to walk away. We all sat down, talked, and caught up. My ex had become everything he wanted, successful and happy. I explained why I did what I did, how I wanted a fresh start for me and my daughter. It was a lot to process, but by the end of the evening, my ex had carried my daughter to her crib. He asked if she was his. I broke down in tears, and he figured it out. He was furious, but I tried to explain, though I knew it wasn't enough. I told him I did what I thought was best for him, and his mom had agreed. That was when the others started to piece it together too. They stayed over, and now my ex wants to work things out. I still love him, but I won't get back together with him just because of our daughter. I told him he could visit her anytime, but he wants me to move to his city. I'm torn. I thought I was making the right decision when I kept everything a secret, but now I'm not sure. I thought it was a selfless choice, but now I'm questioning everything. Any advice would be appreciated. Edit. Early in our relationship, my ex and I had a scare, and he acted poorly, asking me to get an abortion, which made me feel like he wasn't ready to grow up. That was part of the reason we broke up. I didn't want to get back into a relationship with him out of guilt for something I didn't do, and I didn't think he'd be ready for fatherhood. Now he seems so much more mature, and I still love him, especially after seeing how he's with our daughter. But I'm not sure if getting back together is the right thing, especially if it's just for her. I don't regret my decision, but I can't help but feel confused. Update. My ex had a long talk with his mom, apologized for his past behavior, and he's been more understanding. He's been an amazing father, and he and I have started reconnecting. We went out to dinner, just the two of us, and it felt a lot like the old days. There's still a connection between us, but we're not rushing into anything. I'm living in his city now, but I still see my parents on weekends. We've all agreed to help with finances until I finish school. Things are unsettled, but also feel right. My daughter is thriving, and I'm happy to see my ex being a great dad. I can't say if we'll get back together, but I'm hopeful for the future. Story 12. I slept with my dad's boss, and then blackmailed him into giving my dad a raise. This happened about a year ago, and I don't feel great about it. My dad has complained about his wages for what honestly feels like my whole life. He's always worked super hard just to put a roof over our heads, but I don't think he's ever felt financially stable, and I know that's bothered him. He'd been doing this job for about 10 years at this point, and he's only ever gotten a single pay increase, and it was pretty small at that. He and my mom want to help me with college, but that's just not really an option, and I'm totally fine with that. It just means I'll have some loans to pay off. But it's always seemed like a much bigger deal for them, not being able to help their daughter. So, my dad invites his boss, let's call him Rick, over for dinner, which is apparently a thing people still do. He was planning on having him over, and then the next day asking for a raise. I wasn't sure it was the best idea, but he wanted to try, and at that point I think he was just so frustrated with what he was doing that he would have tried anything. I was in college and living at home at the time, and so I was kind of obligated to be there, even though I really didn't want to be. This kind of dinner has happened several times before. The two of them have a good relationship professionally and personally, but my dad has never asked for a raise after. Anyways, Rick comes over and we have dinner. It's generally a good time. After we eat, I go into the kitchen to help my dad with the dishes while my mom talks with Rick, and I find my dad in the midst of breaking down. He's second-guessing himself about asking for this raise, and he's freaking himself out about what might happen if he doesn't get it. I try to calm him down by telling him everything is going to be fine even if he doesn't get the raise, but that just seems to upset him more. At this point I don't know what to do, so I just sit with him until he pulls it together, and then I go back out into our dining room. My mom's sitting there alone, and I ask where my Rick went. She told me he had to use the restroom, and that he'd be back in a minute. I don't fully remember how or why I decided to do what I did then, but I made a heat-of-the-moment decision that I was going to help my dad get that raise. I told my mom that I was going to my room for the night, and then went down the hall, pulling my door closed before making my way to the bathroom. I waited quietly outside the door until I heard him flush, and he opened the door. And I'm now realizing that I didn't hear him wash his frigging hands, which just makes this so much more awful. Before he could leave the bathroom, I put a finger to my lips, shushed him, and pushed him back in before locking the door. Silently, I got half bare, and we did it on the counter. It didn't last more than 2 minutes, thank God, since I really wasn't attracted to him. But we were done, and kissed me before going back out to the dining room. I immediately took a shower because I felt gross as hell, and he left the house before I got out. After that, I went straight to bed, not feeling like I could face my parents. Now you're probably thinking that this is close to the end of the story, but unfortunately, you're mistaken. So, my dad goes into work the next day, planning on asking for the raise, and I'm back at home, fully expecting him to get it after what I did the night before. 5:30 comes around and my dad gets home, looking completely dejected, and I already know that he didn't get it. When he told us about his conversation with Rick, I got unbelievably angry and was practically seeing red. I felt bad for my dad, but I also felt sick having banged this guy for no reason whatsoever. Looking back, doing it with him in the first place was ridiculous. I had absolutely no guarantee that he was going to give my dad that raise, or that he thought anything more than she's doing it with me because she's attracted to me. So pissed as I was, I came up with another plan, arguably even stupider than the first, and that's saying something. I went into my dad's phone that night and got Rick's number. Over the course of the evening, I sent him several pictures of myself with less and less clothing, telling him how much I enjoyed what had happened the night before, and how much I wanted to see him again. This would probably be a good time to mention that Rick is married, since it plays into what I had planned for him. Anyways, we text some more dirty things back and forth before I sign off for the night. The next day, both my mom and dad were at work, and with the house to myself, I text Rick telling him how I'm all alone and want to see him again. We go back and forth for a while before he says that he's going to come over that afternoon and bang me again. This is where the blackmail and the real confession comes in. So I set up our family video camera on my dresser and try my best to obscure it, putting it between my makeup cases and some stuffed animals and throwing a shirt over it. All in all, it blends in pretty well. The dresser looks like the rest of my messy college student bedroom. Like he said, Rick comes over around 1 and we start making out in the living room. He tries to do it right there, but I lead him to my bedroom where I have everything set up, and so we do it again. Unfortunately, he lasts a little longer this time, and he's a lot louder since we don't have to be quiet, but we do it in such a way that I'm sure the camera's got in his face. He kisses me again and starts blathering on about how I'm the best bang he's had, how beautiful I am, and all that crap that guys say when they want to see you again. I just smile and ask him if I'm better than his wife, to which he responds, no contest. At that point I've gotten all I needed, so I just smile and nod until he heads back to work. How he could go back to work with my dad and look him in the eyes knowing that he'd just banged his daughter, I'll never know. Flash forward to that night, and I send him some more suggestive texts, while he's telling me how much his engines are revving. That's when I send him a picture of a video camera and ask him, "Does this rev your engine?" He doesn't respond for about an hour, and then all he says is, "What?" That's when I tell him that I recorded the two of us that afternoon. He flips out on the phone, asking if I'm out of my mind, what my problem is, telling me how I violated his privacy, etc. At that point, I just lay it all out on the line. And again, I know that this was so frigging stupid to do. I tell him that I'll send the video to his wife unless he gives my dad a raise. He shoots back super quick that he doesn't care and that he won't be blackmailed by some stupid bish. And I start to freak out, thinking that my plan has completely backfired and I've gone and gotten my dad fired. I thought about it for a minute before replying. Well, maybe your boss would like to see what you're doing to your employee's daughter when you're supposed to be working. I realize that this is a huge gamble at this point, since I don't know if he's actually broken any workplace codes or done anything fireable. I mean, if he's banging me on his lunch break or taking a couple hours of vacation time, then it really doesn't matter, does it? Well, apparently it did matter, thank God, because he immediately starts sending me a ton of texts saying things like, "You don't need to do that," and "Let's just calm down, okay?" I don't know if he told people he was going for a work meeting when he met with me or what, but he completely freaked out. The last thing I text him is, "You won't ever hear from me again as long as my dad gets that raise he deserves." The entire next day I'm a wreck, and then my dad gets home. At that point I'm sweating bullets, and I'm worried that Rick is going to have done something like tell my dad what I've done. But he opens the door with this huge smile on his face and picks me up in a giant bear hug. shouting that he got the raise he asked for. I give him a bunch of hugs and kisses, while silently thanking God that this didn't blow up disastrously in my face. After that, I went and deleted all of the texts and put the tape in a lockbox under my bed. I haven't talked to Rick since then, and hopefully I'll never have to again. So that's my confession. Like I said, I don't feel great about the whole thing. I felt like a cheap girl for a while after the incident, and since then I've felt conflicted about how I went about the whole blackmail piece of it. But since then, my dad seemed a little less stressed, which honestly means the world to me, so I try and stuff those emotions down and just bask in his happiness. Story 13. I'm having a revenge affair and don't feel an ounce of remorse. My partner cheated on me for a year, and it has deeply affected me. I've been through this kind of betrayal before with an ex, so it made this situation even more devastating, especially knowing my partner was aware of how badly I had been hurt the first time. We've been together for 5 years, and I truly wanted to move past it. We've gone to couples and individual therapy, and at times it's helped. I've focused a lot on healing the parts of me that are broken. I often ask myself, what's wrong with me? That I've been cheated on twice by 2 different people, not just cheated on, but involved in long-term affairs. For the most part, our relationship is in a better place than it was 2 years ago when I found out. But there's still a lot of resentment. I see him differently now. Whenever he points out one of my flaws, I think, at least I'm loyal. At least I have enough respect for you to not hurt you the way you hurt me. Recently, an old fling from about 7 years ago reached out, just to catch up. What started as innocent conversation quickly turned into dirty texting and exchanging private pictures. We met up once, but nothing happened. Since then, all we talk about is how much we wish we had done something back then. He's married with a child. I don't feel anything for him except lust. I get a rush knowing he wants me the way he does. Sometimes I feel guilty about his wife and how she doesn't deserve this, but otherwise, I don't feel remorse. If my partner found out, I wouldn't feel sorry. I haven't told anyone about this, not even my therapist. I've fought so hard for so long to get over the betrayal, and this has been the one thing that has helped me move forward. I know this behavior isn't healthy and doesn't bode well for the future of my relationship, but for the first time, I'm putting myself first. It feels like I'm finally getting some sort of vindication. Story 14. I caught my mom, who I thought was an angel, having an affair on my dad. Now I can't stand her and see her for the sociopath she is. I grew up deeply loving my mother, as many sons do. She was protective, kind, beautiful, successful, and intelligent, someone I admired and aspired to be like when I was younger. However, over the past 3 years, I've come to see her for who she truly is, and it's been devastating. She's selfish, manipulative, two-faced, and overall a bad person. It's a tough realization, especially after adoring her for 25 years. It's strange how you don't really understand your parents until you're an adult. This will be a long post, but I need to get it off my chest. If just one person reads it, it will have been worth sharing. My parents are in their late 50s. My dad is very successful, running his own business, and is a great father. He's a far better husband than my mom ever deserved. They've been together since high school, and even then, my mom pulled a girl out of his Jeep to get in because she wanted to be with him. A red flag that should have been the start of many warning signs. My dad is more passive, while my mom is aggressive. He always did whatever she asked, and she got whatever she wanted. I remember my dad going into over $90,000 in debt when I was 13 just to satisfy my mom's desire for a big house and a Mercedes. We went on expensive vacations, ate at nice restaurants we couldn't afford, and the only thing my dad ever stood his ground on was his right to deer hunt with the guys a few weekends a year. Even then, my mom complained. She had to be the center of everything, no exceptions. But it wasn't until later that I saw her for who she really was. About 4 years ago, my fiance and I were about to get married, and my mom suggested we all take a motorcycle trip with her old coworker James. She claimed he was going through a tough time with his ex-wife. It seemed like a harmless weekend getaway, but something about it felt off. James was tall, handsome, and wealthy, and I got the strange vibe that he was a little too interested in my mom. After the trip, things started to get weird. My mom began acting erratically, and my dad and older sister noticed it before I did. One night, we went to an Incubus concert together, and my mom was acting totally out of character, drinking, wanting to smoke, and disappearing for long periods. I grew concerned and asked my sister where she had gone. She casually said, "She's probably calling James." That's when I learned my mom was having an affair. For months, my dad had been noticing suspicious behavior. She changed her phone and iPad passwords, stepped out for secretive phone calls, and even used a jar of rocks to wake her up if anyone touched her phone. My dad managed to look through her phone before the password change and found suspicious messages between her and James. One night, she returned from the concert with an excuse that didn't add up. When I confronted her, she lied and made up names for her supposed friends. It was at that moment I realized how deep her manipulation ran. The situation only escalated from there. My dad eventually found out everything. She denied the affair, claiming James was just a friend going through a tough time, but the evidence didn't lie. By the time of my wedding, my dad had resorted to tracking her movements with a GPS and hiring a private investigator. At my wedding, I danced with my mom, but I couldn't bring myself to look at her. She had betrayed my dad in the worst possible way. After the affair was uncovered, my mom's manipulation reached new heights. She tried to convince my dad to take her back, and he reluctantly agreed, though they eventually divorced. The year that followed was chaos. My mom spiraled, crying every day and manipulating everyone around her. She tried to play the victim, blaming my dad's twin brother for everything and making him the scapegoat for the collapse of their marriage. It became clear that she was willing to drag everyone down with her. After the divorce, my mom's behavior didn't improve. She used my unborn child as leverage to try to get my dad back, guilt-tripping him about not having grandparents for her grandchild. It was infuriating, but eventually my dad caved, and they got back together. It was like watching a villain reclaim their power, and my mom quickly resumed her manipulative ways. I now see her as a sociopath, someone who needs to control everyone around her. I'm the only one who calls her out on her behavior, and it's become clear that she doesn't deserve my forgiveness. My daughter, now 17 months old, is absolutely in love with my mom, and it frustrates me. I can't stand the thought of her having this kind of relationship with my mom, but I also know it's hard for a child to see the truth. My mom doesn't deserve any of this, especially after cheating on my dad twice. I guess if there's one positive thing that came from all of this, it's that I've learned there are good women out there, and I now know how to trust them. Story 15. Hired a PI to watch my fiance on her girls' trip, and now I'm torn. To keep it brief, my fiance and I have been together for 5 years, and every year, she takes a girls-only trip with her close friends. For some reason, I started feeling uneasy about these trips. It wasn't just the subtle shifts in her behavior afterward or the odd, cryptic conversations I'd overhear. It was something in my gut. Instead of addressing my concerns with her directly, I did something I'm truly ashamed of. I hired a private investigator to follow her during her most recent trip. A few days ago, I got the results, and while I regret invading her privacy, my suspicions turned out to be true. The investigator uncovered evidence of her being unfaithful, which completely shattered me. Now, I'm overwhelmed with conflicting emotions. I regret not trusting her enough to have a conversation, but the betrayal cuts so deep that I'm struggling to envision a future with her. Update. When my fiancée returned from her trip, I tried to approach the situation maturely. I gave her the opportunity to be honest, asking if there was anything she wanted to share about her time away. Instead of coming clean, she gaslit me, making me doubt my own perceptions and reality. Armed with the evidence, I confronted her about the affair. She was taken aback and immediately asked how I knew. I told her the truth, that I had hired a private investigator. I didn't want to accuse her friends unfairly, even though part of me was tempted to do so. Her reaction was pure rage. I've never seen her so angry in all the years we've been together. Feeling it was the right thing to do, I also shared the evidence with one of her friend's boyfriends, so he could be aware and consider getting tested if necessary. It was clear that our relationship had reached its breaking point. We ended things right then. Even though the house was mine financially, I left and checked into a hotel to give her space, asking her to pack her things and move out. We didn't talk for a few days, but when she finally reached out, she expressed wanting to talk and perhaps fix things. But the trust had been shattered, and I couldn't see any future for us. I told her no. Then came the part one didn't expect. She's considering pursuing palimony payments. For those unfamiliar, palimony is financial support awarded to a partner in a non-marital relationship after separation. I've been told that, due to the laws in our state, this could be a real concern. I've already started the process of hiring a lawyer. During our relationship, I took on most of the financial responsibilities, including the mortgage. We had an unspoken agreement. My money is our money, her money is hers, because of our significant income gap. I never imagined my generosity would come back to haunt me. So, that's the update many of you asked for. I wish I had a more positive ending to share, but life doesn't always work out that way. It seems she might have the upper hand in this final act, but I'm hoping for a fair resolution. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.